They're sad that we won't connect.
You know, it is a big thing. It's like losing a friend.
It's just been the most amazing experience.
And have been in Singapore ever since, 24 years.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Welcome to the Upward Spiral Drink Less to Live More podcast. So I am so excited to introduce you today to Rebecca Forwood, founder of Fishwives, a premium online grocer and co-founder of Free Spirit, Asia's first alcohol-free bottle shop. So this is not the first time we're going to be seeing Rebecca on the podcast. We honestly have got so much to talk about, so many topics, but today we are going to be discussing expat drinking culture and what's changing. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to Podster in Singapore.
Hi, Michelle.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to me. How are you doing today?
Very well. Bit hot.
Yes, always in Singapore. So it's Tuesday, but tomorrow is a midweek bank holiday in Singapore. What are your plans?
My husband and I are planning to go for a very long walk, one of our favourite walks and favourite new pastimes in the sober world. We won't be nursing hangovers, which will be nice. But yeah, I'm flying out on Thursday, so we're going to take it easy.
Nice. So yeah, I did ask that question because in the past, for me as well, like I would definitely have been spending tonight drinking, catching up with friends, and then midweek bank holiday calls for a free flow brunch or a boat party or, you know, kind of a nice, fun, boozy day hanging out with friends. So I feel times have changed a little bit.
Yep, they have. I think a mixture of being a bit older as well. The body can't take it, and being now with a non-drinker, I'm not going to drink on my own, and I love feeling good in the morning.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm 100% with you. And with 2 kids, aged 3 and almost 5, I just can't do it.
So you did it the right way. We were still drinking a lot when the kids were little, feeling terrible.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever go back to it, but if we did go back to drinking, I think it would be when we're a little bit older.
Yeah.
And but even then, I'm not sure. I'm hoping by then the alcohol-free alternatives have got even better, that you just wouldn't miss the alcohol at all.
I think your body will probably also reject it, so you won't drink as much, even if you want to.
Oh, it already does that now.
Yeah,
like, you know, I have a sip of champagne and I'm like, yeah, no. Like, it's just not for me anymore. Like, all I can taste when I drink alcohol now is like the ethanol.
Interesting.
That's completely, and that's been almost 2 years now of not drinking. I've completely and utterly lost the taste for it.
That's amazing. We actually learnt last week from one of our suppliers that most of the time it's not the alcohol tasting buzzy feeling that people miss. It's that ethanol hit, that sort of train crash hit in your throat. And so a lot of the alcohol-free companies are using chili to give that hit, and they are doing so well.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I'm going to sound like such an old lady now, but when I drank, I used to really enjoy a sherry. Yeah. And particularly at Christmas. And my mum and dad, funny. I don't know how like common this is or not, but my mum and dad used to leave the sherry in the fridge. So you kind of get this like cold, sweet liquid, but you'd get that really satisfying kind of burn as you would drink it. But it was the only alcohol that I could drink that would do that to you. And obviously kind of I haven't had that in a very long time.
Yeah. Have the chili.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're seeing that, aren't we? With Altina, they were adding that kind of peppery native botanicals, and sober craft beer they do as well, right?
Yeah.
You have been an expat pretty much all your life. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I grew up in Hong Kong, and my mum is Australian, English, and my dad was Hong Kong Chinese. So the Chinese side of the family would say we're not expats, and the British side, Australian side would say we are expats. So I felt like an expat because we had expat friends and what have you. And then I went to school in Australia when I was 12 and stayed there till I was 17, and then went straight back to Hong Kong and basically lived there on and off until I was about 25, where I lived for 3 more years and then came to Singapore. And have been in Singapore ever since, 24 years.
What is it like being an expat?
Well, I don't really know what it's like not to be an expat, to be honest. I find we're very privileged. We see a lot of the world people don't see. We see a lot of and make a lot of friends that people back home wouldn't necessarily make with different nationalities, different cultures. There are lots of, benefits of being especially with young kids, having help at home. And I think it's easier being an expat in Asia than it sounds like it would be in other countries because, well, especially in Singapore for tax reasons. But yeah, I've loved it. And I think that the problem, well, it's not a problem, but I was an expat kid and my 3 children, I think, are going to be expat kids as well because you find that you can't really settle down in one sort of place.
I'm 10 years in now and it's just been the most amazing experience ever. It's hard at times because it's very transient. We have had so many friends come and go and some even come back, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
We had quite a few go home around COVID and then have realised actually how wonderful life can be. Because it is so transient, you're constantly kind of having to put yourself out there and make new friends. And it's really amazing because the expat community is so welcoming. It is very easy to meet new people and make new friends.
Yeah.
But with that comes socialising. And often comes lots of drinking.
Yep.
Did you notice a change in your drinking? I suppose it's hard because you have been an expat on and off almost all your life, so you might not necessarily know any different.
Drinking for me goes right back to my memories of being a kid with my parents as living as kind of expats in Hong Kong, even though Dad was from Hong Kong. But I remember they were always... Dad would be in a drinking dragon boat racing thing and it was fastest to scull beers and... we look back at the family photos and every function we're on a boat and my mum's got a glass of champagne in her hand and my dad's got a beer and that was just life. When I was in Hong Kong in my 20s, I call it the Wolf of Wall Street days because it was really excessive everything. Alcohol was it's just what everyone did. Yeah. Bubbles, let's have bubbles, let's go out for bubbles, let's go out for cocktails. And that was before we were married, so everyone's young and carefree. And then we came to Singapore and, as you say, meeting people was all about champagne brunches and also it was a little bit of a crutch because, when you're meeting new people, you're a bit nervous and it's always over a drink. You're not going to catch up over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And then I feel like things have changed a lot, but it was almost when we had a lot of dinner parties and we went to a lot of dinner parties and it was a case of who can stay the longest and how many bottles can we drink in one night. That was the sort of litmus of a good night. If everyone went home trolleyed and couldn't remember the night or, you look at your rubbish bin the next day and you've got 20 bottles, wow, that was a good night.
Yeah.
It was that was how you gauged it, how long people stayed and, how much you drank. It was just incredible, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Because I left the UK 10 years ago to almost kind of get away from that kind of cycle of, drinking after work drinks Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe kind of a all day session on Saturday, and maybe Sunday. A few drinks on Sunday with a roast dinner. And it was very normal, like drinking behaviours, but it wasn't good for me. Like I was really, really, really struggling to manage my stress, manage my anxiety and ultimately kind of made the decision to leave. I felt like I needed to get away and start fresh. And we went traveling, had like the most amazing kind of 8-9 months traveling all over Asia and didn't want to go home. So we decided to start looking for jobs in Hong Kong and Singapore. Actually, so glad that we ended up in Singapore because I think moving to Hong Kong probably would have...
You've gone back.
Yeah, gone straight back into a lot of those kind of patterns and behaviours. Yeah. Hong Kong is just wild and
amazing.
Very, very fun, but could be a little bit dangerous if you are wanting to kind of cut back on the booze. So coming to Singapore, I was like, okay, this is amazing. And what I did find is that there was still lots of excessive drinking. So lots of boat parties, which were great. And I still go on boat parties now, just alcohol free. The free flow brunches, and we'd never been to anything like that. And for $200, you could get free flow beautiful kind of champagne, cocktails, and the most incredible food. But it was always to excess. It was always, well, we need to get our money's worth, you know?
Exactly.
How many kind of bottles can we get? How much can we tip the waiter so he gives us like, you know, a
Extra.
bit more, especially when the kind of time was up at the end. And very, very, very fun, but again, still kind of in excess. And it was the same with the parties and the barbecues and the meeting people. Often you'd be invited to a brunch and you might only know the people that had invited you, but you didn't know the 20 other people. So it was a great kind of, like you said, crutch for sure, but a great connector. It allowed us to kind of all connect. However, not great for the health. Have you found over the last few years that drinking behaviours and drinking culture as an expat has changed?
Yes, I have. I think for the most part, it's hard with COVID in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, everything just stopped. People were drinking more at home though.
Yeah.
But I think what happened during COVID with everyone drinking so much, coming out of COVID, is when everyone decided to do the dry Jans and the sober Octobers and all those things. Mind you, it didn't really occur to me to do any of those. But I had my husband, like you, he'd reached that point of I can't do anymore. He ran his own business and he wasn't giving it 100%. He said there was just always a fuzzy feeling that he didn't have complete clarity. So he gave up and hasn't had a drink since. But I'm the one that felt like, you know, poor me, doom and gloom. Now I don't have anyone to drink with. With the mixture of COVID, Will not drinking, and a lot of friends leaving, that was just an organic way of cutting down a lot.
Yeah.
So if COVID hadn't have come, if all our friends had stayed and Will hadn't given up drinking, I think we would still be pretty unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe cutting down a little bit more, but we certainly wouldn't be going to dinner parties and having alcohol-free wine and champagne like we are now.
Yeah. I found actually, this is going to be a bit of a bold statement, but I actually found that like some of the biggest party animals who were friends of ours couldn't hack Singapore with during COVID, and actually just kind of got felt so suffocated with all of the restrictions here because they did last longer than the UK and other places. Yeah. And so actually we found some of the biggest party animals left Singapore.
So it made it easier.
Throughout and around COVID, yeah, for sure. But also I was at a different life stage as well, right? Like I had a baby and then we kind of went into lockdown. I had a second baby. So, you know, during that time when people were maybe drinking more at home, I just wasn't. Coming out of COVID and the party starting back up and going out a little bit more, I definitely had kind of a few sessions where I was like so unwell afterwards. Yeah. I was just like, what am I doing? Yeah, absolutely. Your husband's journey, obviously, I would love to speak to him at some point. Yeah, so I kind of don't want to reveal a little bit too much of his story. But, you know, he stopped drinking 4 years ago. He
stopped drinking 4 years ago. He didn't. I don't know if he wants me to tell this story, but I'll tell it. You can cut it out. We went to Vietnam for the Christmas holidays, and we were there for New Year's, and we came back after New Year's, and we all landed at Changi, the three kids and I and Will. And he said, "I'm not coming back with you. I'm going to Perth." I said, "What? What do you mean you're going to Perth?" He said, "I've got to go and do something in Perth." And I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "What the hell?" Anyway, he got to Perth, and I kept trying to ring him, and he wasn't answering, and he was a bit sporadic on texts, and I'll speak to you later, I can't talk right now. I didn't really know what he was doing. And then I called him one day, and I could hear a female in the background, and I was like, "Oh my God, are you having an affair?" And he said he said to the guy he was over there with, which is his life coach, "I have to call Beck. She thinks I'm having an affair and I have to tell her what I'm doing." And so he sort of basically said, "I'll fill you in when I get home. It's not what you think. I'm with," can't remember his name, Cam. "I'm with Cam." And so as soon as he said that, I'm like, okay, I know, you know, you're doing something to do with you. I thought it was his business. Anyway, he got back and he said, "I went to stop drinking and I think I really need to stop drinking. I needed someone to help me. I needed to go through it." And he can tell you how it happened. It was pretty full on. But he said, you know, it is a big thing. It's like losing a friend, which I've felt as well. And he just did it sort of month by month, and a month turned into a year, turned into 2 years, and now he just doesn't drink at all. But he's really worked hard and educated himself, and he's got such a strong sense of the path he wants to go down. And I wish I had half of it, but I'm still drinking. But he's never, ever, ever once sort of been pious about it, or sort of said, you shouldn't be drinking that, or do you really need that? He's like, champagne, would you like a drink? He faced a lot of adversity in our friendship groups when they sort of found out he wasn't drinking. But he's still the one who can stay out till 3 a.m. People don't know he's not drinking. He's still the life of the party. So it wasn't his personality that needed the alcohol, which was quite interesting.
I love how you just described it as it was like losing a friend, like when you give up alcohol. And it really does feel like that, right? Like, this substance has been in your life and your whole life. Okay, you might not have been drinking your whole life, obviously, throughout childhood, but yeah, it's a crutch. It's
always been a positive thing. Celebration, alcohol, or anything like commiserate alcohol.
Yeah, and just comfort, like stress relief, sleep, like all of these different reasons that you take it. And I'm sorry, I'm always kind of having this kind of light bulb moment in you saying that, because I always felt like my friends and family would be disappointed that I stopped drinking. And I think to a certain extent my parents are, because they're such boozers but they're such party people. Like they're brilliant and they're so much fun to be around. But I think they're sad that we won't connect like that level anymore. Yeah. Have those kind of long, lazy afternoons in a beer garden with my sister and her husband and everyone together. And we will. It will just be slightly different, and I'll probably just be on a slightly different level. Yeah. But when you say that alcohol is like losing a friend, that is as well.
Yeah. No, it is. It's such an interesting thing, because it's like smoking. It's bad for you, and so you don't do it. But no one says to you, "Oh, go on, have a cigarette. Go on, go. Why aren't you having a cigarette? Oh, God, you're so boring. I don't know if I can be friends with you anymore." But as soon as you say, "Oh, I'm not drinking," it's like, "What do you mean you're not drinking?" "Oh, I don't know. We've had people say, "I don't know if I can be friends with you anymore." "Can you not be boring that night and have a few drinks?" That sort of language. It's interesting, but as you say, I think it is changing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I'll say that now we're really kind of making an effort of like expanding our social circle at the moment. And we're really kind of going out and meeting new people and inviting them over. We host a lot. As soon as I say, "Oh, I don't drink," right now I get so many more questions. Like, how's it going? Why not? What are you drinking instead? I'm thinking of doing the same. I'd love to cut down. Tell me more.
That's great.
And obviously we've got a whole range of non-alcoholic alternatives at home. So I want to rival your warehouse, I think, actually, at this point. But then people are interested and they want to try and they want to discover new products and they want to, and I love that. And again, I don't know if that's just my social circle is changing and we're attracting kind of more like-minded people, or if that's just the general feeling.
I think it is changing, and I think when people, I'm not putting him on a pedestal, but with people like Will, my husband, with his friends, they're sort of like, well, he's done it without shame. So then they sort of go, "Oh, no, I'll have an alcohol-free beer as well." And he'll go out with mates and they'll have alcohol-free beers. Yeah. And that's been a massive shift. And he's, he used to feel a little bit anxious before we went out. It's like just the barrage of questions he's going to get, which were usually negative. But now people are, "Oh, mate, I went sober for a month and tried some of the stuff from Beck's shop and it was amazing." And it's starting to get a little bit more acceptable. Yeah, because the stigma's going.
And also, I love that he's almost like a bit of an influencer, like in his
non-alcoholic stage.
Yeah, but all it takes is for one person at the table to go, I'm actually going to choose the non-alc option, and others will always follow.
Totally.
And I love that. I love that it's becoming more accepted now in expat communities. We go to barbecues now. I always bring extras. Because as soon as kind of the conversation gets started, and
people want it.
It often does. I'm like, well, you know what? I've got a bunch here, try some. And every single time they're really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, Will takes his alcohol-free beers everywhere he goes. And now friends, and he just said, I just don't expect them to have it. You know, they're not thinking in that way. But now 9 times out of 10 when we go out to someone's house, they have gone and bought alcohol-free things and said, oh, no, we keep them in the fridge now because sometimes, you know, I'll have one. And he's like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And that's it. And you know, to be fair, like my friends and family, like my family, when they come over, they're drinking a lot less. They're trying the non-alc options. And my husband as well, like he still drinks far less than what he used to. Not that he was ever like a massive boozer, but he is choosing non-alcoholic alternatives as well. Has your drinking changed with him?
Totally. I mean, I used to, when I look back on it now, I can actually hardly believe how much I drank, especially when the kids were younger. You know, you'd open a bottle of rosé as you were giving them a bath, and you'd have it while you were cooking, or before Will would come home, and then he'd come home and he'd want one, so we'd open another bottle and we'd finish that chatting, and then dinner would come and he'd say, should we have another bottle? And that would be sort of a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and before we knew it, we'd had 3 bottles of wine. So I actually very rarely drink now unless we're out.
Yeah.
Maybe once and then even then I'm not drinking loads. I'm having, you know, for me now 3 glasses of wine is my limit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really positive. We're not drinking a lot at all, but I still miss the celebratory. So when we went to Bali and we're sitting on the cliff at Uluwatu, I was almost angry I couldn't share a champagne with Will, and he's like, well, I'm having a drink as well. It's just not alcohol, but something that was just, but you're not getting the buzz like I am. You see, I am still getting the buzz. So that's died down a little bit, that feeling, but that was quite hard in the beginning.
I think my husband does say the same as well. You know, just a couple of times a year when we kind of go to those, you know, romantic little weekends away, you know, just being able to kind of share a drink together and, you know, have that kind of moment. But again, it's more even that I still want those moments. I don't even want the taste of it anymore. So I've kind of gone past that craving and, oh yeah, I could probably have one and everything. And I think that's what a lot of people don't know, is that those cravings and that they just go away. And I'm sure kind of that's the same with Will now. Like he just doesn't even think twice about it.
Doesn't think twice.
And that kind of anxiety about going to a party or going to an event and what are people going to say, is that eventually stops. I've said a couple of times on this podcast is it took me a while to actually say the words, no thanks, I don't drink. It actually took me a year to say those words. Because for the first 6 months, it was like, oh, I'm not drinking, I'm training for a marathon.
Oh, okay.
And then afterwards, I was like, still didn't want to drink. So I was kind of just making up excuses. Oh, I'm training for this. I've got an early morning. I'm doing that. And eventually I kind of had the courage to start saying, no thanks, I don't drink. Yeah. And actually, once I started to say those words, like I got more and more confident and more kind of assured in the decision not to.
Yeah. And have you found now it's easier to get the alcohol-free options when you're out?
Oh, yeah, so much more. Yeah. I often will try to kind of look at the menu before I go out. If we're going anywhere, just see what they've got. Yeah. And, you know, there's the Dandy collection, and they have got like Farangi Superstar and the Prince and Neon Pigeon and kind of a bunch of other restaurants. And they are amazing. Like I'm obsessed with them. And on the first page of the menu, they've kind of got, I think at Farangi Superstar, it's called kind of the Poison Manuscript. And it basically acknowledges on the first page of their cocktail menu and drinks menu that the way that we're drinking is changing, and the way that we should be viewing menus and alcohol should change as well. And so they don't discriminate against, for, you know, if you want a full, half or zero proof. And you kind of go into the menu and everything is tagged full proof, half proof, zero proof, but you're still getting the same most kind of phenomenal high quality cocktail that you genuinely wouldn't know whether it had alcohol in or not. Like so incredibly sophisticated, so beautiful. You feel so included, and it's just not, it's not even kind of a thing. You're not sifting to the back of a menu trying to find a non-alcoholic option. Or a soft drink. There it's right at the forefront of their menu. And I think that's what's really changing now in Singapore. We're seeing so much more of that. And
that's great.
A lot with your work at Free Spirit as well.
We're trying to get the word out there.
Yeah, because I think on your website you've got this map with all of the places that you distribute non-alcoholic alternatives
That's
to.
been quite fun, actually, because we've started off with, one or two, and now there's lots of dots.
Yeah, and I love that because I'm like, you know what, actually, if I'm going to get to choose where we want to go, I will choose somewhere that's got
some good options.
Yeah, that's not just going to be a soda or a very sweet mocktail. Again, kind of wanting something low sugar, sophisticated, something that mimics alcohol, something that's adult.
And I think I was asked today by someone, have I seen the market grow? I said, oh my God, to the point where we have to make a decision because it's just grown so much.
Yeah.
And we are at the next level. It happened so quickly.
Yeah.
From no one wanting a bar of us to last week we're at Pro Wine, and we had the head of MBS come and say, we want you. And that was our dream, 3 years ago when we started, and now they're coming to us.
Yeah, and this is just amazing. So this is what I wanted to talk about next is like expat drinking culture's changed, but what about locals and what else are you kind of seeing across Singapore and Southeast Asia?
I'm generalizing when I say most locals don't really like drinking, but generally Asians find drinking, they have drunk for status symbol more, and red wines, the good red wines, because, in days gone by, the French wines, the Bordeaux's, that sort of elevates their status if they have good wines, good cars, whatever. So, but they haven't really, and I've spoken to my cousins about this, they don't really like the taste of it.
Yeah.
So the young ones are the ones who are going for it, the alcohol-free, because it's quite funky, some of the beers, and they're happy to do that. But the older generation, not so much taking the bait just yet.
Yeah.
But it's really picking up which is so great to see, the younger, sort of the 20s and the 30s.
Yeah.
And the 40-year-old sort of bracket that we find are very into their fitness.
Yeah.
And so they can take it or leave it,
Yeah.
But they will take more of a soft drink over a more traditional wine or champagne.
Yeah.
But it's the 0.0, and that's another whole topic, because most of the wines and champagne has 0.2 or 0.5, no more than that. And some people, and that's even less than what they have in kombucha, but people look at that and say, oh no, it's not alcohol free.
Yeah.
And I
think there's more alcohol in a banana.
Exactly. That is so true. So the 0.0 market we are finding becoming very popular with the religious barriers. So the Muslims are going for that, and our champagne's halal, so that's getting a big rap.
I love kind of the attitude with Gen Z, and I think Gen Z have grown up seeing kind of millennials on social media fall out of bars and get themselves into some states, and they're just thinking, why would I do that? Why would I put myself into that position? And they're being a lot more aware about what they're putting into their body, what's happening to the environment, and are making much more kind of conscious decisions. That gives me loads of hope for my kids.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be awesome. But I love also that they're embracing non-alcoholic alternatives as well.
Oh, it's so great to see these kids they worry less about what people think about them, even though they're in front of TikTok and Instagram the entire time. They don't care if someone sees them with an alcohol-free drink. They're I don't want to drink tonight.
Yeah.
And that's great. My daughter's 22 and I see her friends, they don't feel swayed by the group, like we did.
The older generation, so being at Pro Wine, I had the pleasure of kind of hanging out with you guys a little bit over
it was busy.
The last week. It was amazing. But it was amazing about how many people were coming over and were open to trying it. We had lots of sommeliers come over.
Yes,
and
that was... and also people who had never heard of alcohol-free wine and champagne. Yeah. Because we're immersed in the industry so much now, I just can't imagine people haven't heard about it. But they were amazed and sort of almost converted, Oh, it doesn't taste like champagne. Just try it. Yeah. They try it and they go, that has to have alcohol in it. No.
I love seeing people's reactions when they're like pleasantly surprised that it's that it's something that they're like, actually I can drink this. And it's not even just I can drink this, it's like I want to drink this. And this is a viable alternative to a beer. We're seeing that a lot with the beers, right? Like the craft beers is people are choosing the non-alcoholic craft beer because it just tastes better than the alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
You know?
And no, exactly. I'm not a beer drinker, but I wish I was.
Yeah. So what should we be looking for in a non-alcoholic alternative?
I think if it's stated non-alcoholic, I don't think you need to worry about the 0.2, 0.5% thing. That's just doesn't even come into it. What you do need to look at is the sugar content.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the early days, a lot of the early non-alcoholic drinks were made to taste palatable by pumping up the sugar level. And, you know, I won't name them, but they some of them had, 24 grams of sugar in 100 mils. And you're like, no wonder everyone's drinking it because it's like candy.
Yeah.
And the new alcohol products that have come onto the market are very savvy and very aware of using their brains to come up with solutions that tick all the boxes. They don't have a lot of sulfur in them. They don't have a lot of them don't have preservatives in them. A lot of them are used with natural botanicals, things like chili to sort of mimic the taste of alcohol. And they're the ones to go for, I think.
Yeah.
Always look at the sugar content.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of wines as well that almost staying true to winemaking as well, that continue keeping that kind of process, making a really high quality, beautiful wine, removing the alcohol at the end and actually still left with.
It's an incredible process.
Yeah.
They take a really good wine and they spin it and they remove the alcohol and the taste.
Yeah.
And then they put back the taste and keep the alcohol out. So you have this incredible product.
Yeah. And that is why it's quite high cost.
Yeah.
So a question that I get all the time is like, it's the same price. Why is it so expensive? There's no tax, especially in restaurants. Why am I paying the same price?
That was our problem, trying to get it into the restaurants. They wanted it for next to nothing.
And you're like, well, it's not a soft drink. It's actually gone through the same process.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more, right? Like, and, you're getting a very high quality product.
Yeah.
Be it alcohol free.
And that's also on price point that we actually turned a lot of sommeliers thinking around, because they're like, my customer isn't going to come in and pay the same amount for a glass of champagne as a glass of non-alcohol champagne. I said, yes, they will.
Yeah.
I said, as one of those people, I just want to be included with my friends. I don't even look at the price, because if I'm in your restaurant, I know what I'm in for.
Yeah.
So I will pay whatever you put on for that champagne just to feel included, or just so it's not an obvious thing and I can enjoy a great glass of bubbles as well.
Yeah.
And that's been interesting when people, when they've tried and tested it. And Raffles Hotel is a great example in their beautiful French restaurant downstairs. They were like, oh, do you think people will pay? And I said, they won't look at the price because they're in this restaurant anyway. And then once they sort of clicked on there and they put it in their other restaurants, it's just gone.
A lot of the conversations that we were having last week at Pro Wine is a lot of the Michelin star restaurants, not just including kind of one non-alcoholic wine, they're including like a series, they're doing non-alcoholic wine pairings. And actually some of the top chefs prefer you to have a non-alcoholic wine because it complements the food better. The alcohol's not like taking anything away from your palate. It's not changing how the food tastes, and actually it's just enhancing your experience of the meal. And so I just think that's awesome. So for real foodies, start looking for non-alcoholic wine pairings with your meals. Tell us a little bit more about Free Spirit and the market and how it's grown.
So we started off just online, but when we came into the market, I said to Emma, well, we both agreed together that it was in its infancy. I think it's sort of in toddler stage now, but in its infancy, I said, well, we're first to market. We have to find the best brands and the best quality products and get them signed up with us before anyone else does.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a problem, actually, because no one really wanted to touch it. But it meant a lot of tasting Oh my God, a lot of tasting crap,
Yeah.
a lot of tasting hundreds and hundreds of different products. And that's why I also think we've done so well, because there's so much out there, and we've curated it into this small range, which is actually quite big, of really good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much stuff out there that everyone wanted to jump on the bandwagon, so just sort of made sweet grape juice or, you know, really sweet soft drink type things. And we've tried all that, believe me, and we've, you know, some of the packaging was like, oh, this is so good, this would sell really well, but it tastes terrible, so we're not going to do it.
And I'll vouch for that because I'm kind of one of your biggest customers.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I honestly like the products that you share are really high quality, really great. And again, they've kind of just helped me no end.
And I think it's people like you who have tried it, it's good, then you'll trust us on trying other things.
Yeah.
You know, you dip your toe in and you think, oh, they're not bad. And then you realise that actually, I would say everything in our range is good.
Yeah.
And people say, why don't you have XYZ that someone else has got? And I said, we tried that, it's not good.
Yeah.
We don't want it waste shelf space.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great for me as well, because when I, you know, friends and family ask where can I get something in Singapore, it's like, okay, well, hey, then, you know, you can't really go wrong. Obviously kind of depending on your taste.
Well, I think we have something for everyone and a price point for everyone as well.
But what are your favourite non-alcoholic alternatives?
I do love Naughty, which is our hero champagne. I've played a few tricks on people where I've served it and they have not realised it's not alcohol. It's so drinkable. I do love that. I don't know if I should say this, but I have a red wine favourite, which I think I've told you about before, that we're not selling yet. It's from Austria. It is out of this world. Second to that is Altina and Naughty. They're very good.
Yeah.
And I love the little RTD cans, actually, from Altina. They're just, especially in Singapore, on a hot day, they're really lovely. So I go to those.
Their Sanskria is great.
It's so good.
Yeah. Boat parties, that's one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
Keep it nice and cool. And yeah, they're
it's
beautiful.
Just really lovely. Singapore is the best place for Altina products, I think.
Yeah. And have you got any advice for any expats who are maybe looking to cut down on their alcohol, or maybe kind of find themselves in a group that are partying excessively?
Yeah, I think don't be too hard on yourself and have all or nothing. You know, you can be curious. You can sort of dip your toe and decide, you know, if you drink 4 days a week, well, maybe I'll cut down to 2 days a week, and the other 2 I'll get a home delivery. No one's going to see you do it. You can try it in your own home, and then start taking it to dinner parties. And we went to a dinner party on Saturday night, actually, and my husband took a bottle of red wine with him, bottle of Naughty, and we were all drinking and he wasn't. And the host then opened his wine and started pouring it in for everyone. And you could see their faces, and I picked it up and I said, oh my God, you've just served the non-alcohol wine. And everyone was actually pleasantly surprised. And 3 years ago, we wouldn't have done that, taken a bottle of non-alcohol wine. So I think you can do that now. You can bring your own wine. You can bring your own beers. Talk to the restaurant if you're going out. Bring them beforehand and say, do you have alcohol-free options other than soft drinks? Would you mind if I brought my own? And you can do it very quietly if you want to, or you can be open about it. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But just try. Don't feel ashamed to try.
You know, you can blend it as well. And this was kind of a lot of the discussions that we had at Pro Wine is, you know, you can start the night on with a glass of champagne and you can move to alcohol free, or like that, or vice versa. You know, you don't have to be kind of all or nothing on the night either. You know, it doesn't have to be kind of just throughout the week or for periods of time. So I think that. And then another thing is, like, if you're struggling, you're not sure if you want to drink or not, just start with a non-alcoholic option, because actually often I find that's enough to get over the craving, and you enjoy it enough. And then before you get into the conversation, you get into the party, you completely forget about it anyway. And before you know it, you've done your night or your event without alcohol.
Yeah, because it's usually just having something in your hand.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter.
Definitely. It's that prop a lot of the time.
That's right.
I think you'll also be kind of more aware that there are so many more events now that will be using alcohol-free alternatives. So, you know, lots of PTA meetings at schools will order.
We have had a few of those, and the military as well.
Awesome.
So it is getting out there. It's good.
Yeah, big, business conferences as well, just being able to have, where they maybe don't want their guests to be inebriated.
Well, I think that's going to be mandated soon in a lot of companies that they have to have alcohol-free options.
Yeah.
Because it's the way of the future. Companies, hotels, even the MBS guy coming to us and telling it, he said we need to have options in every outlet.
There are a lot of countries in Europe where it's mandatory. You have to have a non-alcoholic option on the menu, like an alternative, not just kind of a water or a soda. And so hopefully that's what we'll see.
We will, I'm sure.
Across Asia.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming to talk to me today on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation and can't wait for you to come back.
Same.
So I always kind of ask my guests, one final question is, if there's anyone that you can recommend, who should I talk to in the industry? And it could be someone in the non-alc space, someone who's building community, someone who's doing great storytelling and just maybe helping people drink a little bit less. Have you got any recommendations?
I would have. You would have come up first on my list, actually.
Oh, thanks.
I think my husband would be a great person to talk to, but he's not in the industry.
But
he is building a community, like he is creating a community.
And that'd be awesome. Definitely, because it sounds like he's got a really amazing story.
He's so up to date on everything in the non-alc world. He actually was the one that told us about Naughty.
Okay. Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I think my mum introduced me to Naughty as well, actually, back in the UK. So despite them being drinkers, they have been experimenting for a while with non-alcoholic alternatives, or at least low alcoholic alternatives. So.
I mean, your question quickly before was, how do people start on a low, cut down with the low, and then you could just work your way down.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm really excited to see, expat drinking culture is changing, hopefully for the better, a little bit kind of less drinking, a little bit more health conscious, but keeping the fun as well, keeping the enjoyment, keeping the connections, keep socializing. You can still do the boat parties, the brunches, the parties, the dinners. You can still do them just with an alcohol-free or a low alcoholic option. And it is becoming more acceptable. So no embarrassment, no shame.
And no hangovers.
No hangovers.
No wasted days.
And be proud as well. Like,
Exactly.
you can say it proudly because, 9 times out of 10 now, you're not going to get any grief. In fact, you're only going to get support, which I think is amazing. I am going to link to Rebecca down below, so to your LinkedIn, to Fishwives, which we haven't even talked about.
It's another podcast.
That's another podcast. Of course, to Free Spirit and all of your socials. Thank you again for coming to talk to me, and I'll see you soon.
Yep.
Thanks.